Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to create a config for your mod so that the user can configure exactly what your mod does. So in your core package, let's create a new package called .config, and in there I'm going to create a new class called tutorial_config, and I'm going to make sure that this class is final. And in here I'm going to create a public static final forge config spec .builder, and I'm going to call this builder, and this is going to be equal to a new forge config spec .builder. And then I'm going to create a forge config spec, and this is going to be our spec. And we're going to open a new static scope, and then in here we can build our config. So let's do builder.comment, and then we can add a comment. So here I'm going to put config for tutorial mod. And what we can do, we can actually create an indent with builder.push, and remove an indent with builder.pop. And there we go. Now at the end I'm going to do spec is equal to builder.build, and now we've created a config. However, this config has nothing inside of it, so let's do that now. So in order to make a value, we can do public static final forge config spec.config value, and then we can pass in the type of that value. So if I want an integer, we can create an integer, and I'm going to call this example integer. And we can also pass in pretty much any value that is serializable, for example a string, a double, or a float. So let's do example string as well, and I'm going to leave it at this for now, but you can do pretty much anything you want. And we can do example integer is equal to builder.comment, and then we can add a comment, and then we can do .define, and then we pass in the name, so example integer, and then the default value, which I'm going to set to 3. And here we go. As you can see, I've now defined our example integer and example string. And that's actually it for our config. You can always add more properties and more indents with the push and pop. And all we have to do to register this config is to go into our main class. We're going to do mod loading context dot get dot register config, and then we need to pass in a type. So here we can do type dot common. And we want to make sure to import the type from net.minecraftforge.fml.config.modconfig.type. And here we can choose between the client config, so that's just for client stuff, common config, which is both for common and server, and just for the server. So I'm just going to do common. Then we want to pass in our tutorial config, and finally our string for the name of the file. So I'm going to call this tutorial mod common.toml. And you want to make sure that this ends in a .toml so that your config registers correctly. And once we load the game, we can go to run config, and you can click on config and press F5 to reload, and you should see tutorial mod common. And if you open this, you can see that we have config for tutorial mod with our comments and our values over here. So let's set example integer to 10 and change this to CY4 tutorials, and then save this. And we already have this on player toss event, so let's just use this as an example. So when the player tosses an item, we can do system.out.println to send a message to the console. And in here we can pass in tutorial config dot example integer dot get. And let's say this is example integer, and we can do the same thing for our example string, and this is going to return an integer, and this is going to return a string. So now when we toss a player, it's going to output whatever integer and string are in our config file that's over here. And there we go. Once we load the game and drop an item, you can see that it prints 10 and several tutorials, which are the new values that we set in our config. That's it for this video. Next time we're going to do some world gen. If you need any help, join the Discord, and I'll see you next time.